And good morning, everybody. Welcome into the DFS Minute. We're going to hit you up with another quick video this morning talking about Pick Em contests and snake draft contests for people who are brand new to DFS in the industry, may not know what these are. Something that was made very popular on Draft Street and has been carried over to a few other sites, but the two major sites, FanDuel and DraftKings, have chosen not to run those contests. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think they are not running those contests, even though there was some rumblings on the DraftKings side that perhaps they were going to. I think I know, potentially why they're not running them, who is running them, and what do I think, what is the place of these contests in the industry, if any at all? So we'll get into that a little bit. So let's talk about Pick 'em contests. Pick 'em contests are basically a non-salary cap daily fantasy sports contest where instead of picking players from a salary cap and building a team, you're picking out of a group of players, a tier, and you're building a roster that way. So it might be a situation where in baseball, you're picking from a group of 5 or 10 catchers for the day, and then first base, second base, etc. So it's kind of working the same way through. It's just you're picking out of a select group of players, so it's 5 or 10. And you're going that way. Another way that the thing with pick'ems too is that sometimes there's not positions assigned or groups assigned. It's just assigned based on, it might be the top 10 hitters, salary wise, and then it goes down from there. Top 20, top 30, 21 through 30, etc. And also there might be some groups of pitchers thrown in there too. Obviously, it can work in any sport. Football would probably be the best sport because you're picking from a group of quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. It's quick, it's easy, and you can do it. And it really probably carries over easiest to the season-long guy. So from that perspective, I think pick'ems probably work the best in NFL. Because it's an easy transition for a season-long player. Of course, in baseball, pick'em is a little bit easier as well because you're not having to worry about the research so much. But again, it's that one day. Now, with pick'ems, maybe you can put it out there where you're, having them in advance. And the only thing you got to worry about with pick'ems, and this can be one of the drawbacks, is if a player gets scratched or a player gets hurt or a player doesn't play, they're then removed from the player pool of that tier. So it weakens the tier. Where this really hurts is like on Draft Street, they were doing 5-player tiers. And sometimes in baseball, 2 or 3 of those players in that tier were not playing that day or ended up getting hurt. And so what happens is you've got everybody picking from, a player pool of 2. And so that can hurt the contest. So when we talk about large field tournaments and things like that, pick'ems probably aren't the greatest thing, that you want out there. But as far as heads ups go, as far as small leagues, as far as smaller tournaments, like, up to 500 people, things like that, I think it is a way for the sites to, introduce daily fantasy sports to casual players. I think it's easy. It's also more mobile friendly. You're not having to calculate stuff and screen through salaries. You're just looking at a group of 5 or 10 players and that's it. So, from that perspective, I think there's some pluses. Who are the sites that are doing pick'ems? From what my understanding, Draft Day, Fantasy Feud are the 2 sites right now that are doing pick'ems that I know of. So that, if you want to play pick'em contest, that's where you want to go. It was something that was pretty popular on Draft Street, leading up until when they got bought by DraftKings. So they were really pushing pick'ems hard. They were running pretty large tournaments for pick'ems, trying to get new players and get their metrics up. So I think it's viable. It's got to be done right. I think sometimes, maybe a 10-player tier is too much. Maybe 5 might not be enough. So what's the magic answer? Is it 8? Is it 7? I'm not really sure. I think I'd rather see, tiers of 5, but you're picking like 12 players for a team or 15 instead of something like where it's like maybe 6 or 7 tiers of 10 players. I think the 10-player tiers might be a little bit just too much for new players to grasp. I think that's kind of where the issues come in. Also, too, when you have more tiers, but you have fewer players in the tier, you're picking from a group of more superstar players, and that's going to appeal more to a casual player as well, or somebody that's new. Now, as far as snake drafts go, again, Draft Day, Fantasy Feud, and also Fantasy Score is running these as well. And I know snake drafts were extremely popular on Draft Street, but I think that they must not have represented a big percentage of their revenue and their volume, because we did hear DraftKings come out last year and say they wanted to implement some of these things, whether it was snake drafts or there was Pick Ems, and they haven't done it. One of the things I think that, FanDuel has actually come out and said they were leery about Pick Ems just being too close to gambling. So that's what they were worried about. Maybe snake drafts ended up being the same way. There's no salary cap involved. I'm not sure if I buy that answer 100% completely, but that is what they're on record as saying. Look, if from a development standpoint, it's all new programming, and the return on investment might not be that great. So that's one of the tough things as far as a new site goes, or even one of the bigger sites. You're investing resource into something that may not turn out to be something big, or what you feel is going to move the needle. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons. The other thing too is, like, think about it from a restaurant perspective. While you have a lot of themed restaurants, let's say Olive Garden is an Italian, quote unquote Italian restaurant, or some of these other places like Carrabba's. My point is they serve Italian, and people go in there expecting Italian, and they do have some steak and chicken items on the menu, but it's not much. And it probably doesn't represent very much of their business. They just have it there through the people that don't like pasta or Italian. So the thing about that is it's kind of the same thing with a DFS site. Is if they add on snake drafts and Pick Ems, especially a FanDuel or DraftKings, like, it's just such a big undertaking as far as educating their player base, educating the audience, promoting it, getting behind it. And it's going to take away from the main core business that they currently have. And so they must be looking at it and saying it's not worth our time and money to invest in this area. Now, for a smaller site, I think that there is opportunity, because if people aren't going to do it, that's an opportunity for you to go get new players. So, for guys like Feud, for Draft Day, for Fantasy Score, they can promote these contests and use them as selling tools to newer players and say, hey, if you're intimidated by salary cap, we have you want to draft, you want to go against another person, you want to go against a whole league, and et cetera, this is what you can do. Unfortunately, I think snake drafts are really only NFL. I think that that's where the market is. I just don't think that there's enough there for the other sports to really be able to capitalize on it. But I do think there's something viable for NFL. I'm not sure if it's been done right yet. I think one of the biggest factors is I'd love to do snake drafts on Thursday night, but I'm worried about what's going to happen, and if some of my guys are going to get hurt come Sunday morning when I'm getting ready to set my lineup. So I think that one of the things with snake drafts is there's got to be some bench spots. There's got to be some insurance. At least let me have a couple of quarterbacks, depending on the roster configuration. If it's 2 quarterbacks, let me have a backup QB. Let me have a backup running back. Let me have a backup wide receiver. And I think if you're rolling out like, a 1-2-2-1, et cetera, no kickers, no defense. If you got a 10-man roster of quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, and some flexes, give me the opportunity to have maybe 5 guys on my bench. That way there, when Sunday morning comes and I need to set my lineup, I've got the opportunity to do so. I know with Fantasy Score, once you're done with your draft, you can go ahead and you can actually, there's a pickup period where you can pick up a player and, from that perspective, and kind of cover yourselves that way. But I think having a bench is really critical. And, if it's an 8-man roster, having, 3 or 4-man bench, or a 10-man or a 12-man, whatever that happens to be. I just think that, that's something that is going to be the, kind of the key factor with snake drafts moving forward. So, that's kind of my take on Pick Ems and snakes. I think that even there's options in college football. I think Pick 'em could be relevant in college football. It's an easy way to transition in. And only have people focus on picking the big players, or the certain conferences and things like that. I think that there's big opportunity for Pick 'em in college football. Snake draft for me is strictly NFL, I think, but there is big opportunity for NFL. I think it's a lot of fun to draft against another player, or maybe 2 or 3 other guys, and kind of roll your lineups out there and see how it goes. All right, guys, that's my take on Pick 'ems and snakes today. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned again for another DFS Minute video coming soon. And as we always say here at RotoCurve, stay classy, DFS.